got it. Chantal, well done on your year. We'll get into that after we hear from Frankie. I know Carla's got 4 days. Billy, are you also on the 4-day mark? Absolutely brilliant. Chantal's got a year. And I think we've got about 150 to 200 guys in Whitport in Johannesburg. So we're really great. And Frankie is gonna give us a message now. So we're recording. Please, Frankie, take it away. I think you can unmute.
I think we're unmuted. Can you hear me?
We've got you, Frankie.
Brilliant, brilliant. Paul, you're gonna have to give me some boundaries, especially if we're got the guys from South Africa on. Because when you're in treatment, you need boundaries. And if I'm going to start sharing my experience and my message of recovery, as you know, they best start putting in their order for pizzas, because we could be here all day, you know. So give us a time boundary so we can.
Why don't we start with about half an hour, 25 to 30.
Okay, yeah. So that's good. That's good. So, okay, let me get rolling. First off, I'm going to say something that the Americans say. If I make fun of the Americans, please don't get a resentment towards me. It's just something I have a tendency to do. I find Americans funny. I'm not American. As you hear, I'm a Cockney. I might sound like Jason Strachan, but I'm actually a Cockney. So I'm not from Hollywood. Yeah, my name's Frankie. I'm an addict. It's good to have people on. I'm going to do some qualifying. I went to prison. I'd been taking drugs on well, I don't even know when I started. I was addicted at a very young age. My nan got me addicted to drugs at a very young age. But I went to prison, and when I was in prison in 1992, I made a decision that after spending time in prison and going to Borstal, that I would go to 12-step meetings, preferably Narcotics Anonymous. I was doing AA as well at the time, but I was more comfortable with NA. And I decided that I wanted to stop. So that was my journey. Yeah, so, and the reason I mention that, especially for the guys in treatment, is because I thought it was a done deal. I thought it was done and dusted. Go to a meeting, listen to people talk about drugs, and come out of prison, everything would be good. I didn't realize that I had a journey I was about to embark on where everything was going to be different. I'm going to slightly sidetrack with a few stories. Paul from Aberdeen, I was speaking to him yesterday because it was his birthday, I believe, on Monday. And this guy was unable, when I met him, he was unable to stop. He couldn't stop. And what was summing up recovery for me yesterday was he posted a photograph of himself with his girlfriend, out with his mum and dad, can you imagine that, taking your girlfriend with your mum and dad and going out and having a lunch? You know, that's pure recovery bollocks, isn't it? You know, because when you're using, you don't do that kind of stuff. You know, not everyone has that opportunity. And when I spoke to Paul yesterday, he said he doesn't have enough time. His life's really busy. And I was like, no shit, no shit. You know, when we come here, we get a white key ring because we ask for a new way of life. And one of the things you hear with addicts is we get a new way of life. That's what happens. So I ended up going to treatment 8 times. And I'll skip forward. I really did well in treatment. I did so well in treatment, I became an addictions counsellor for quite a few years. And then I went and worked abroad. But that doesn't make me a professional in recovery. That just makes me somebody who did really well in treatment. So come to 2003, okay, from 1992, 1994, coming out of Wandsworth Prison, 2003, I'm coming out of a detox in London, England, and there's a 10-year, basically a 10-year gap. And that's when my journey of recovery had started. I'd been involved with doing step work, and I knew this thing was about feelings. Yeah, I knew this was about feelings. And while you know, you have this thing of when we come into recovery, we're told that this is about a deeper level of feelings. And one of the things that I'd learned, or I'd started to understand with myself, was once the drugs were removed and I was abstinent, when I got angry, my head turned bright red and I thought my brain was going to explode. And that could be just because somebody walked in front of me. I'm not making any reference. I'm not being sexist or anything. But you guys that have got less than a year clean, you have to be really careful around the sex. Because I found in my recovery that in my first year, when I had sex, I always kept thinking I'd found my soulmate because it was so good. Everything's really pumped up. I'm really enjoying my life, yeah? And all the things that prevented me from experiencing stark raving reality were all heightened, totally heightened. You know, I had to go to bed with mittens on, seriously. So, you know, I never went to the drug dealer. I never, ever went to the drug dealer and said, I feel inadequate. Can I have 2 rocks of crack cocaine? I never fucking did that. I don't know if people do. You come into treatment, you come into NA and people start saying, you know, I feel inadequate today. You know, my self-worth is being challenged. It wasn't making sense to me. It wasn't making sense. And the other thing as well, what changed for my recovery, and I have to mention this, what made the difference after being in recovery for 10 years, working the 12 steps, going to meetings as much as possible, what changed for me was I met somebody who showed me what was wrong with me, because I was trying to identify with everybody. And part of recovery is identification. But you can't identify with everybody because we're all different in many different ways. You know, some of us have diabetes, some people can get sickle cell anemia, some people are stupid, you know. I don't want to offend any stupid people, you know. It's like, but the thing what I found with being around addicts is addicts in general are not stupid or dumb. That's my experience. They're not dumb at all. They do stupid things, but they're actually quite highly intelligent people. And that's my experience around being addicts. How many addicts do you meet that are dyslexic? Nearly most of the addicts I meet in some way are dyslexic, but they manage the world good enough, you know. So, yeah. You know, sometimes if you don't stop and take a look around, you know, you're going to miss something. So my early sponsor, it's really important to have a sponsor. My early sponsor got me to learn about what was wrong with me. See, I was one of these addicts that they call an allergy addict. You know, when we have that reading, 1 is too many, 1,000 is never enough. That's me. Once I start the process, I can't stop. I don't know about you guys, but once I have one, I can't stop. I don't know. Has anybody bought any gear, bought any drugs, bought any, you know, and they've bought it and they said, I'm going to save some for tomorrow. Once in a blue moon, I've met someone who can save drugs for tomorrow. With me, generally, if I buy something, when it's 1 minute past midnight, it's now tomorrow, so I can use the rest of it. So that's kind of how, you know, I'm obsessive, and that's the other part of the illness, you know. So once I trigger the allergy, soon as I'm off and rolling, soon as I'm having half a lager, my mind kind of says, why are you having half a lager when you want a joint? You know, it's like, fucking hell, you know, it's like, I start being obsessive. I'm obsessive without drugs. This is the bit I'll move on to, you know. The other thing is I'm compulsive as well. And they're the three factors that make up what we call a twofold illness. But you don't need to know that, do you really? When you're in treatment, when you come to NA, you don't need to know that stuff. But after 10 years of coming and not being able to get recovery, I learned that. And that helped me understand the rest of the shit. You know, for example, being powerless. You know, the first step of it all is like, if we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction and our lives have become unmanageable, when we're reading the literature, it says sometimes the unmanageability jumps out at us. It's the easiest thing to see. Me not being able to pay me rent, me not being able to pay for a mobile phone, not eating on a regular basis, not going to bed and all the rest of it, all this unmanageability, not having money, that doesn't make me powerless. That's just the second half of the first step, working backwards. I'm just unmanageable. Why am I unmanageable? Because I can't regulate my thoughts. My thoughts are obsessive. I'm all over the fucking place. So we admitted we were powerless over our addiction. So if I'm powerless over my addiction, right, and this is the bit I'm really talking to the guys in treatment for, because we hear this a lot more in the meetings. If I'm powerless over my addiction, I have to do something, yeah? Because if I'm powerless, what happens is my addiction will get me to do something that I don't want to do, and I can't stop myself because I'm powerless. Now, that's confusing. That's rocket science. That's confusing. I'm going to do something against my will, which means I say I come into recovery and I do fuck all. I go to meetings. But when the craving comes on, what defense have I got against using? I might know that I'm powerless, but being powerless doesn't stop me from using. In fact, knowing I'm powerless makes it worse, because the amount of times I've sat there with a joint in my mouth or having a drink or, you know, having the odd sneaky line, I'm saying, well, I'm powerless. I'm powerless. What can I do? And that's the whole point of doing the recovery more than the meetings. The meetings of themselves are good. One addict helping another addict and coming together is really important. But moving on to step 2, the second step, which is so, so important, is a power greater than myself. I need somebody with experience. That's a power greater than me. I've got to hopefully find someone who's not too damaged, who's not so crazy, who's not mad. You know, it says, you know, with step 2, it says, you know, oh, I got stuck on step 2 then. And give us a quote on step 2 on the spot. You're muted.
Coming to believe.
Yeah, I'm hoping these guys in the treatment centre are shouting out, I did it on purpose.
Oh, right.
Right, so if I need a power greater than myself, yeah, it's not about being insane. Sometimes you get people in all the treatment centres I went to, in the 8 treatment centres I went to, people all came in and went, I'm mad, mate, I'm mad. I tell you, and they tell you these stories about being mad. I crawl around the carpet, you know, I look out the window, you know, I look through the pee-hole in the door and all that stuff. I once looked through the fucking hole in the door For so long, one of my eyes felt cold for about a week. But of course I'm acting crazy. I'm on cocaine psychosis. You know, when you're an addict and you're insane, what an addict does when they're insane is use drugs, because the maddest thing an addict can do is use drugs. When you're needing a power greater than yourself to help you overcome recovery, that's different. What that is you need the experience of other addicts. That's why we have a basic text. The reason we have a basic text and it's basic is because it's a textbook. And if you ask yourself who reads a textbook, students read textbooks. So we have a basic text. So if you've been hanging around in meetings for the past year and you haven't read the basic text or looked at the basic text, I'm not going to tell you you're in trouble. You've got your own experience. What I learned was I was in fucking trouble. If I didn't read any of that literature, which was put together, as Paul said at the beginning of the meeting, or was it Billy? I'm not sure. For addicts by addicts, you know, that highlights the other part of what I have wrong with me as an addict. I have a built-in forgetter. You know, does anyone remember back to when it was really shit? Does anyone remember to hanging over the toilet and puking up blood and snot coming out your nose and all? No, we don't remember that. We just remember the good bits. So most addicts that I've met have built-in forgetters. I have a built-in forgetter. I can look back and think, wow, I did some amazing things. I didn't have a shit using. What I had was the inability to stop. A lot of my using was good, but it came at a price. A lot of my using was, you know, I lost my wife, I lost my house, I lost the business I was involved with, all these things I'd worked hard for, and I gave them away quite easily because the drugs were a power greater than me. The treatment center was a power greater than me because the treatment center told me when to get up, when to eat. The treatment center told me when I can make a phone call. They told me when to write a letter, when I can have a visit. It was a power greater than me. The workers in the treatment center told me what I needed to do. I needed to tidy my room. I needed to clean up. They used to say words of wisdom like, if your room's untidy, then your brain is untidy. It's all good advice, but it's not long-term recovery. It's that early stuff. So I need this power greater than me. I need to understand what people have learned about addiction and how to get over it. There comes another stage when we get, because I'll stop around this step 3 stuff, but I'll carry on with some experience. There comes another stage in life when we get to step 3. And you know what? I'm now 20 years clean after being around for 30 years. And I don't have a religious belief. I don't say that to knock anyone with a religious belief. I was baptized at 2 days old, brought up a Catholic. I'm not anymore. It's not my belief system. If religion worked for me where addiction was concerned, I would go to church, but it doesn't. I've got a sponsee who's a millionaire. No, he's an ex-sponsee now, who's a millionaire, doing really well, flies about the planet, has a great fucking life. Very religious. It works for him. It doesn't work for me. So what I have to do, and this is really important because I'm so much of a people pleaser and a codependent. Oh, a little tip for people in treatment. If you want to find out who's a codependent, okay, all you got to do is ask somebody to stick their hand up to do the cleaning. And it's always the same people who put their hands up. They're the codependents, okay? So yeah, moving on. So I have to get a God of my understanding. So I need a recovery God. I can't have, you know, I grew up with a lot of Muslim people because I came from East London, East Central London, City of London. There's a lot of Muslim people around me, and their belief system's different. And being brought up a Catholic, and they were fighting with the Protestants, and there's all this difference, like, all confusing for me. I'm just a kid from London. I come into recovery, and I have to get a God of my understanding. And thankfully, what happened for me was somebody said to me, why don't you change the words? We're the fellowship that evolve. We learn about what we need to do, and we evolve. So my step 3 became, you know, of me making a decision to turn my thinking and my actions over to the care of recovery. So everything I did, especially in my early days, was recovery based. You know, if the illness lies in my thinking, as well as the allergy, but it mainly lies in my thinking, if I turn it over to recovery, basically what I'm saying is, I'm going to do some step work. I'm going to move on. I'm going to do some step work, and I'm going to do some moral psychology of step 4 and step 5 and find out what's actually going on for me. And what I found was going on for me was I was holding myself back all the time. That was the problem I had. I so wanted friends. I so wanted people around me. I so wanted to have this life of community. The only way I could step outside the box was to be loud, was to be larger than life. And I thought that was working for me, but it wasn't. So I've had to go through the step work, and I've had to work out, what is somebody with low self-worth? You know, if you want to find out what low self-worth is, do something worthwhile, and you'll find out what low self-worth is. So, for example, you know, outside of recovery, if I've got some old neighbours and I go around and I look after them, or, you know, there's a couple of people around me at the moment I go and give some food to, older members of recovery who can't eat very well and don't look after themselves. You know, I don't make that public knowledge where I live, but occasionally I take food around to them. You know, it's something which is worthwhile. It's a humanistic thing to do. That makes my self-worth grow. It's like, it's not rocket science, but being explained that me plus you is a power greater than me. You plus me is a power greater than me. And the way I explain that is, if we've got a problem with Mike fucking Tyson, I'd much rather have you lot on my side, and then we can go and kick his ass, because I can't do it on my own. I can't fight him on my own. I need you guys. So when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, we need each other. That's what I always wanted. I always wanted to be part of a gang. But I was a part of a gang that was all alpha males and people trying to be putting everyone else down. And in recovery, what I've done in recovery over all the time is I've got myself around like-minded people. I try not to be around people that are horrible, because it's not working for me being around horrible people. I always thought before recovery that at the end of my life, I would be sitting in a rocking chair, smoking a joint. I didn't realize how restricting that is, how much of a life I've got. I've got such a good life, you know. Let me just some little ones. You meet a couple of different people in recovery, and we have to learn how to kind of develop. Yeah. What kind of addict are you? Ask yourself, what kind of addict am I? If I hit my dog with a newspaper, right? My dog attacks the newspaper. So what kind of addict are you? Are you the kind of addict who goes into treatment and they tell you what to do and you attack the treatment place? Are you that kind of person? Or are you the more intelligent one? Are you the one who, you know, if you've got a clever dog, you hit the dog and he'll bite you because he wants you to stop hitting him. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's that thing of, wow, it's that thing of, understand it starts with you and stops with you. You know, if I come out and I'm looking outside and it's raining and it's cold and I'm thinking the weather's shit, that's my interpretation. Somebody else is coming out and saying liquid sunshine. Wow. You know, life is, you know, how I choose to see it. And the step work, with the help of a sponsor, with the help of the recovery literature, helps me see things differently. It changes my perspective on reality. I start to see things differently. There's a big difference, okay, in being in recovery and working the program. Seriously, you can be in recovery and be in a treatment center and be in recovery and go to meetings. Okay, so let's start off again. So I can't do what I don't want to do just because I don't want not to do it. Step one, I'm powerless. I need some power greater than me. I've got the chance of going to meetings. I've got the chance of getting support of other addicts. A support network's really important. Getting a sponsor is really important, especially one that's not nuts. That's quite hard to find. Having an understanding of a higher power isn't essential, but it's bloody helpful to a lot of people. Writing down a step 4, working out what a resentment is. In a nutshell, a resentment is me being angry at someone and I drink the poison to try and kill them, you know? That's what a resentment is. I'm fucking really angry at one of my best mates, so I decide to drink the poison to teach him a lesson. You know, I have to work all that out. I have to do some kind of, I don't have to write a step 4, but I have to sit down with someone and go through it and find out what my part is. If you guys watch a soap opera later, whole of life's soap opera, my role in this life that I play is I'm a son, I'm a husband, you know, I'm a really good granddad, you know. When I came into recovery, I was an ugly little monkey who had all sellotape wrapped around my glasses, who was very bad at shoplifting and stealing and couldn't tell the truth. Everything I fabricated and lied and made up. Well, I've got to change. If I don't change, my clean time's going to change. I have to change as a person. And, you know, it's, you know, I might have a PhD, you know, being a pretty heavy drug addict. I might have a PhD in using, but that doesn't mean I know how to do life, does it? You know, in all seriousness, you know. Have you met anyone when you're in treatment who's hangry? You know, they're a hangry person. You know, there's a thing in our basic text that tells you on step 10 around, you know, they're called the halts: hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and they always miss the end one off, called serious. Don't take yourself so fucking seriously, because no one gives a shit. You know, we try to tell you this in recovery, but everyone becomes really fucking serious, you know. So being hangry, it's the new word of around, you know, being angry and hungry at the same time, being hangry, you know. I'm only interested in one thing, really, and that's the future. And the only way I know how to get towards the future is together with you guys, with all of us. It's the only way we can get to the future, you know? So, you know, there's a lot of people who don't I'll realize the time, Paul, and I'll start winding it down. There's a lot of people who don't understand the total abstinence part of recovery. There's a reason for the total abstinence part of recovery, to help us be able to think more clearly. And the concept of spiritual living. I'm going to, I'm going to hip hop through two things. One is recovery is not about finding God. Recovery is about getting well. That's what recovery is about. Having an understanding of spirituality is very, very important. Very, very important. How our spiritual intelligence and our emotional intelligence is played out is very important for addicts, because this addict here, I am obsessive. I blow everything up. I make it big. I make it big. All my emotions are big. I'll give an example of a spiritual intelligence. Okay. At Christmas, I had some friends over. Okay, I'll keep this short. At Christmas, I had some friends over. A friend came over. He was quite problematic. Now Steve's gone. I'll share this a bit better because Steve was from my area. You guys don't know. So, okay. Had some friends over for Christmas, feeding them Christmas dinner. One of my friends brought a boyfriend with her. I didn't want him to come. You know that thing we think, fuck it, I'm spiritual. Allow him to come over. It's Christmas. You know, I don't like the geezer. Don't like the cunt. No. He's out the back vaping. I've got lung disease. You know, I smoke crack, I smoked heroin, I smoked anything, took dog worming tablets, I did everything. I can't have people smoke around me, otherwise I start choking. I asked him very politely, can you not smoke or fuck off out the garden? I'm still, you know, breaking my own boundaries. He says, yeah, it mugged me off in my own home. 20 minutes later, he's smoking again. So I go up to the girlfriend and I say, look, I really love you, but can you take him? Can you take him away? He's not respecting me. You need to go. The pair of them get outside my house and have a fight right outside my house. I live in a beautiful place in Somerset. My next door neighbours don't know I'm an addict. So they're having a punch up on the doorstep. Now, the spiritual intelligence is they're not aware how their actions affect my next door neighbours. The other day, my next door neighbours came up to me. The day after, the next door neighbours came up to me and said, was you okay? There were people fighting on your yard. You know, what's going on? What's going on? They don't have the spiritual intelligence to understand how they impact others. The spirituality that I understand is, am I kind? Am I considerate? How does Frankie affect other people? You know, what part do I play in this life? Am I part of the solution? Am I a good guy? Or am I a wanker? What am I? I have to make the choice. Some people don't understand. They're so self-obsessed and self-centered. And we say in the literature that self-centeredness is the main part of our spiritual sickness. You know, the self is in the head, the will is in the head. And yeah, just to finish off here, as I said earlier, when I came into recovery, I wasn't a good guy. I had scabs on my face, I had burnt lips, I had sellotape, you know, sticky tape holding my glasses together. I was looking a little bit like Gollum, could have probably got a film part as Gollum. Now I'm 20 years on, I've gone through the 12 steps. My granddaughter's never known me to use. They think I'm the best granddad in the world. I can definitely say that if you work the 12-step program, you'll turn out to be far better looking than you can imagine. You save millions of pounds in cosmetics. I am probably the best looking person on the whole of this meeting because of working the 12-step program. Thank you so much for allowing me to share today. Love to you all. Remember, it's your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie, so much. That's absolutely brilliant. Look, the guys are just, let's see if we can unmute everyone. Are you able to come on camera, guys, and thank Frankie for his share?
Thank you, Frankie. That was amazing. Hook shot right there.
Well done, Frankie.
Thanks, Billy.
Here's the guys just putting their cameras on, I think.
Thank you, Frankie.
Hey, you okay? Great.
Thank you, Frankie.
Brilliant. Thank you.